Hello, it's Toast Party, and today I'm going to be talking about the best budget decks for March 2021. So, still waiting on the ban list, and I decided, hey, what are the best decks that you could pick up right now that you can get for a budget that would be really good? But without further ado, let's get into that list. Starting off with number 5, Dragon Link. It's very strong and easy to build on a budget. It's currently the third best deck floating around, and despite being the strongest pick on the list, it's also an extremely risky pick because of how good the deck is with its non-budget variant. There are some cards that might be in the line of sights for being hit on the ban list, so while it is still an insanely good deck, it is also one that's insanely risky to try picking up. But still worth considering to put on a list like this. Next up, we got number 4 with Dinosaur. Kind of like Dragon Link, it's an insanely powerful deck. Still one of the best decks in the metagame right now, but to a lesser extent than Dragon Link, it's still a potentially risky pick. Something like Miscellaneousaurus is a card that could be possibly hit on a ban list, whether that be this one upcoming or one down the line. But that being said, the deck is insanely consistent and insanely hard to interact with, and is great at going first and second. And you can get most of the stuff you'd need for it out of 3 copies of the now reprinted structure deck, Dino Smasher Fury. But without that, let's go up to the number 3, Burning Abyss. It's a very powerful control deck that isn't strong as, say, as Dragon Link or Dinosaur is as a deck, but unlike those entries, this deck has no chance of getting hit on the BNR. In fact, it's mostly just been having things taken off of the ban list. It's got an insanely good grind game, and now that Rusty Bardiche is at 1, it can make really good going first boards. Let's go to number 2, Unchained. This one is both very cheap, and while not like insanely strong, it is a deck that I see being really good in a post-VFD world because of the decks that I think are going to be strongest in a post-VFD format. It's going to be stuff like Zodiac variants, or like Zulich, Dogmatica stuff. Stuff that has to pop, and Unchained really likes that kind of matchup. And with VW out of the way, this deck actually has a pretty good matchup against most of the remaining metagame. Up next, we have a special mention that's not really a very good deck right now, but a good pickup maybe for the near future. That being Dual Avatar. It is a ultra budget deck right now, and it's super consistent. You can pick up pretty much the entire Dual Avatar core of the main Dual Avatar cards for under $15. Probably, like, you can almost get everything for like 10. With the exception of like a handful of expensive cards you might need to pick up for it, and by expense I mean under $10. It is a super consistent deck that can tag into different forms of disruption, albeit very conditional disruption. I feel as though this deck is just one card away from being a very solid deck, falling into a similar vein like Salamangreat, a super consistent deck that can just do its one not as great combo play as, say, something like Dragon Link, but a super consistent and repetitive combo that with conditional disruptions. I think if it had an Omni-Negate counter trap similar to that of Salamangreat Roar, then this deck would be very solid. Because the deck has 14 starters, all of which can end on multiple different boss monsters and conditional disruption. It would take a skilled pilot, but I feel as though this deck, with the right tools getting printed in the future, could be very solid and something to consider for the future. But let's get on to the final deck of this list, Shaddoll. It is an incredibly powerful strategy that, while not as strong as either Dragonlink or Dino, is probably the strongest deck you can pick up that on a budget that isn't going to get hit on the ban list. And there's also so many different variants you can go with this thing. You can go pure going second, you have Trap Shaddoll going first, Shaddoll invoked if you have money, but we're not really considering that one for a budget list. But those other three are all very, very solid picks that you would be able to play completely on a budget because you don't really need that many expensive cards to put together. You need maybe at least one Shaddoll Schism, and that would eat like $20, but $20 and 3 copies of the structure deck, plus a little bit of hand traps and stuff, it's an insanely powerful deck. Also, 3 copies of Super Poly, insanely good, as well as the fact that Winda is a thing that exists. So, that's my list for today. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have an excellent day.